New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
Hello, welcome back. I am your host, Reverend Dr. Sharri Johnson, and this is Global Focus Today. Today we're doing something pretty unusual. A couple of weeks ago, we had a practitioner from Florida, Marco Carrillo, whose ministry is called True North, who came on and talked about the topic of the dark night of the soul. What it looks like, what it feels like, what the experience is. Today, he's coming back to talk about what happens when you lean into that and come out the other side. So please welcome with me, Marco Carrillo. Hey, Marco, thank you so much for coming back.
Hey, Reverend Sharri, how are you?
Oh, if I was any better, I'd be twins.
Quadruplets. Why not?
So I love your background.
Oh,
I love
you.
the whole idea of empowering leaders. But mostly what I love is that you're willing to come here and just open up and take the chance that the experience that you're sharing is going to be of tremendous benefit to other people besides yourself and me. So tell us what's going on since 2 weeks ago.
Well, it's kind of interesting. I mean, it's, to your point, I thank you so much for giving me this opportunity because it is healing for myself and hopefully somebody else who may be going through this. A couple of things come to mind. The dark night of the soul, as you mentioned in the intro, is something that I've studied and I've, those of us who are along this path of metaphysics and new thought, we've heard it several times and it's actually mainstream now. But to experience it and to be able to be a gentle observer of your own actions, of your own cause and effect, living your consequences is a whole different thing. So when I first came into New Thought, probably, studying it seriously about 8-9 years ago, I recall the dark night of the soul. And I also thought to myself, I'm reading these books and taking these classes with like a ravenous appetite. I was taking them in and I noticed that around me, a lot of these people were doing it too, except they had been doing it for 15 or 20 years. So I'm thinking to myself, a lot of the workshops were coming up with a lot of the same problems, a lot of the same issues. And I'm like, okay, so do I dive in and learn about this from an intellectual perspective and stay in a perpetual state of healing? Or do I put it into action and walk the talk and heal? Not, basically, we know that we're in a perpetual state of healing, but really, really feel that I've stepped into my authenticity, that I've stepped into my superpoweredness, that thing that I knew has been there, not from a pompous or an arrogant perspective, but because there's something alive in you that has been suppressed and that has not been given voice yet, right? So how best to do it than to invite my friends into my life now and to address some of those underlying scripts and belief systems that have brought me into these consequences that I'm currently living. So we're going to go into shame and guilt today a little bit, and as much as I can. What do you think about that?
Well, I think that shame and guilt is nobody's favorite topic and everybody's favorite burden.
Yes, it is.
So, and hiding from it doesn't work.
It doesn't. And to do the hard work is frightening. But I'm here to tell you, and that's why I'm opening myself up. I'm willing to do it and do it in front of you and do it in front of our friends because it's worth it. It's worth letting that voice be birthed, letting that ministry, whatever it is, emerge, and creating that unity, that connection with each other, and in the hopes of not only being a better version of ourselves, but and inspiring others too, and empowering leaders. So yeah, today, starting on the topic of shame and guilt, I won't profess to be an expert, but I'll give you a little history as to what it's meant to me and what I've learned from it, and things that, actual tools that I think everybody can take away and try for themselves, and that I can tell you are working for me. Number one, vulnerability. I kept my head buried under the sand for many, many years. And finally, when I came out about 8 years ago, I thought that was the end of it. That was the magic pill. Ha ha ha. But wait, there's more. And there was levels and levels of shame and guilt that really had nothing to do with my sexual orientation, but had to do with all the cues that I adopted under the level of consciousness, and that were working themselves out into belief systems under the level of consciousness, which can be an insidious place if you don't observe it. So I remember one of my favorite teachers that I've read and I've done her workshops, Mary Morrissey, mentions notice what you're noticing. And that became my mantra, is how do I look at the consequences that have been shameful for me. I'll tell you, I experienced it right before I came to my office just a little over 2 hours ago. My car is now parked in the farthest spot that I could find in the parking lot of my office building because of shame, basically, because it's filled with almost everything I own. And today is a day where, for the first time in my life ever, at the ripe old age of 57, I don't have an address. And you would think I'm torn apart, because inside I would be. But what I know and the wisdom that I have allowed in, from a divine place, from that crack where your heart just lets the light in, is that this is not a punishment. These are consequences of choices that I made. And quite honestly, a lot of them were framework that happened at the level of a child. So I did a little research, and another one of my favorites on shame and guilt is Brene Brown. And she's a classic with that. And she mentions something which I think is a very interesting perspective. She mentions that shame it could be the foundation of humility. If when you're at that 15-month, 18-month, when you're starting to create a consciousness, because it tells you, don't kick that person in the shin because that's not nice. And somebody along the way said, that's not nice, and that could be shaming. But to absorb that as part of you, as an innate emotional defect, that is not, if it's not put into its proper perspective, can build into toxic shame, which is debilitating, and the causes of God knows how many psychosomatic illnesses. I can show you pictures of myself where I look like Linda Blair in The Exorcist. My face completely contorted into muscular spasms, hives, you name it. All psychosomatic, based on the levels of stress. And it all resides in your prefrontal cortex. So I'm not going to get scientific because I don't have the wherewithal to do it. I'm researching it because now that's an awakening for me. Now I want to learn about this more. But she mentions that the difference between shame and guilt is saying to somebody, for example, let's say you get a 47 on your paper and you say to yourself, your self-talk becomes, I'm stupid. I'm not worthy of a good grade. That's shame, and that's toxic. Where you say, I can't believe I didn't study for that test. That's guilt, because now you're putting the judgment, if you will, or the focus on the action, not on the innate person or the emotion behind it. So when you get toxic shame, it could be birthed in a couple of places, pretty much. I think trauma is a good place where it starts, and also habitual access to it. So for me, I noticed that it was a relationship with finances that I learned as a child. You know, my mother being separated from her children because of political reasons for 25 years. Her kids were in Cuba and she was here, and she was hoping that they would be raised by her family in the best way that she could have. But I was raised for those 25 years, and my father joined in that march as well, to just throw money at the problem, to quell guilt. And I cannot blame her. I cannot be angry at my mom, because she did the best that she could. And that's what she could do, is hope and pray that the money that was getting to her children were being used to protect them and to keep them from bouncing from home to home and from being possibly abused. And unfortunately, when she came to find out, and they finally came to this country, that was not the case, she couldn't deal with that. And you know, hence comes what I believe is probably the biggest antidote to shame, which is radical forgiveness. Radical forgiveness, of situations, of belief systems, of people that you've blamed, but ultimately of yourself. And another expert in the topic of shame, who's actually a Hay House author, and has several things published through Sounds True Media. His name is Ted Levine. He's a PhD who has studied shame for at a good amount, and he says also that toxic shame is something that is linked to your emotional responses. So it may not even have anything to do with that situation that I experienced or whatnot, or feeling gay, or that I had disassembled the family that I loved the most, and just shame made me kind of walk away from it with my hands tied pretty much and with nothing. All these things are moments, but underneath them, there's history of programming that is rooted deep, deep, deep. And you're thinking, well, how in the world do I figure that one out? And that's where I kind of was. I was like, how am I going to take 50 plus years of programming and unravel that? Well, I have to tell you, first and foremost, it's a decision. It's a need. It's an absolute unnegotiable. You've already decided. You've already jumped on the bandwagon and said, universe, I want to be the best version I can of myself for my own happiness. I don't want to have to justify my existence or my actions. You know, if I know I'm doing well, you know, I mean, I'm a caretaker. I always have been. I've been kind of like you. I've been the problem solver of the family. I've been the person who kind of stepped up until the well ran dry. And here it is, feeling very dry, but very grateful that I've got this platform, that I have this awareness, and that I have these tools that I've used to help me navigate shame. So an interesting perspective for me on this shame is basically kind of retracing its steps. Where did it start? And it could really lead you down a rabbit hole. And I have found that deep prayer and deep connection with source, with spirit, it's like alchemy. Love completely disassembles all of that. Self-love, self-compassion does it all away without you having to figure it out. You know how we say, go ahead and put the cart before the horse. Believe it and make it so. As a man thinketh, do it this way. Well, the reverse is also true. You don't need to know the how. You don't need to know how it's unraveling, because you know that by the grace of God it is. And by faith and by trust, you follow those steps one at a time. And that's where I'm at now. I'm looking at this reset, this financial reset, as an opportunity for me to reconcile not only with myself, but with my relationship with wealth and finances, and to really take hold of that. I never thought that of all things, that would be my bump in the road. I thought, oh, please, I'll learn that. I'll get a budget. I'll get QuickBooks. I'll figure it out. No worries. I'll just make more money. The universe said, no, you signed up for this, Marco. You signed up for being the best. You're not going to get a partner. You're not going to get your vision until you're able to overcome this and master this, because it keeps showing up. And you know what else keeps showing up, Sharri? Love. In truckloads, from friends, from my spiritual community, from people that you can't imagine. And this is what happens when you strip down. Ooh, I stripped down. and you make yourself vulnerable and naked. There's a tremendous amount of power and unity in that. And, I don't want this to sound as a Debbie Downer, because it actually, I see, like you started in your intro, I see the other side of this. I see the possibility.
You used a word a little while ago that is really important to what you're saying now, and that was humility. And I think one of the keys to taking the spiritual awareness and bringing it into the experience of the dark night is discovering the mistake that as humans we very frequently make, and that is the failure to recognize the difference between humiliation and humility. Because as long as it's tied in your mind to humiliation, you run, you hide, you deny. But once it becomes humility, it's what you said. You signed up for it. You recognize your own part in it, and the shame just crumbles. It just dissolves, because you realize that it was just part of the process.
It's pretty.
That's a really important, the difference between humility and humiliation. And in my life, it's been the case that that's not been something that I learned and was done with it.
It's a work in progress.
I learned that over and over a few times before I finally got to where I could go, oh yeah, humility.
Yeah. This thing has come back several times to say, hey, Marco, I'm here. And I'm like, yeah, I see you. I don't want to deal with you. But it's time.
It's the gum on the bottom of your shoe, Marco.
Yeah. And it feels gut-wrenching, I'll be honest. It feels gut-wrenching. Because when I was going to go over all these different practices that I've used that have really helped. I know, for example, Ho'onoponopono is something that I love, that because it really puts you in a trance, and it's a very easy mantra. It's, I'm sorry, please forgive me, I love you, thank you. Those 4 things, you repeat them over and over. And when I usually do it? When I'm sitting in a tub of warm water, sometimes with bubbles in it. And I have some Zen music, and I'm just relaxing, and I just repeat it and repeat it and repeat it. And the things that start coming up are things that I'm like, where did that come from? Might as well call it magical, because you get into this mantra of self-love and of visualizing the child that learned these behaviors, and you really start focusing on forgiveness and protecting that child, reconciling with that child, gaining its trust back, because let's face it, I betrayed it for most of my life. I looked in the other direction of what it wanted, what he wanted, and it's time to reconcile. So I do that. Meditation is also, I practice TM as well. So many different practices, but really, I don't know where I got this phrase, but I said, I've judged myself too harshly, but I do know that I have to notice what I'm noticing, where my GPS is pointing. Is it pointing true north, or is it going down a rabbit hole? And that's where the noticing part, and also behaviors, behaviors that are locked into those things that are surfacing, that were under the surface, and saying, okay, who are you? But doing it in such a way that I'm not harsh, because I've done that to myself already. I've beat myself down already most of my life. I'm really good at that. What I have to learn, though, is the love and the compassion for myself.
Oh, you mean you've decided to stop judging yourself?
I have. I'm not going to read myself to filth anymore. I'm done with that.
All right. That's why Ho'oponopono works.
Yeah.
It's because Ho'oponopono removes the judgment from the situation.
Absolutely.
I love Ho'oponopono.
Same here. It's almost a form of, here we're going again, neurolinguistic programming. I mean, if you know the NLPs, people are talking about this a lot, and affirmations to me have a lot to do with that. Mm-hmm. But when you actually imbibe it into your core, not only intellectually, but from that place of your heart, that place of knowingness, that is when the true transformation takes place, is when you feel it. So all those books I have in storage, they're great. They pointed me in the right direction, but you've got to do this work.
There you go. You can't just read about it. You have to do it. You have to be it.
Gotta be it. Absolutely. So yeah, I mean, things are these are shaky waters that I'm navigating right now, but I'm navigating my oar as much as possible, as best I can. And as I always say, I always get by with a little help from my friends. And that's an old Beatles song, which I love. I changed one word. I don't like get by because that seems too mundane. That was the old Marco. Marco 2.0 thrives with a little help from his friends. Like you.
Excellent. I love it. So tell us some more practices. I love Ho'oponopono. What else?
Yeah, well, definitely Ho'oponopono something. There's a lot of groups out there, meetup groups that do NLP. So one of the things that I started doing is I realized that right in that hypnagogic state, right as you're waking up and right before you go into bed, when you start feeling sleepy, I started recording my own voice in affirmations.
I do that too.
And there's a power, Sharri, you probably experience it too. There's a power of hearing your own voice make these declarations about yourself. The tone that you use, if you're not used to speaking to yourself in a loving tone, that's your opportunity. Fake it. But yep. You know what? Until it becomes reality in those early days or early hours or the really late night hours, you absorb it under the level of consciousness where
because
all this.
You've let the bridges down, you've let the gates down. That's brilliant. And most folks have on their phone a recorder.
Yeah. If you have an iPhone, you got it.
I'll record whenever I find a wonderful affirmation. I record it, and I have a little file on my computer. I mean, on my phone that has them. And then when something hits me, when I feel like I got blindsided, I just open that file and go, here's one. This will work. Click. And because I used to teach something called affective training, and one of the important concepts was that nobody can lie to you successfully because your mind knows what it knows. Mm-hmm. but you can try. So when you do an affirmation, it has to sound like words you would speak. It has to be true. It has to be affirmative. And you have to mean it.
Yeah.
And if you put those things together and record those, the words almost don't matter because it's the vibration, the heart vibration that comes through your voice.
Absolutely. And one of the things in my research of the type of modalities that could help me with shame and guilt, I also discovered that we are very visual beings. And although we may take things, because I know I'm audible too. I really can take a message audibly, and I love audible.com, and I love listening to lectures as well. But ultimately, visual is our strongest of all the senses in terms of taking those cues and having us interpret them in our way. So to visualize yourself as that which you desire to be, the way you are, the way you speak, the way you dress, the places you go, the people you meet, the things that you do, the feeling of being that there's a lot of power in that. So when you're listening to your affirmations, you almost want to get into a dreamlike state because, yeah.
Well, actually, the affirmations in affective training are used right before what I call a mental video, where you get to be the writer, the producer, the star,
Love it,
and the director. And first you do relaxation. I use natural childbirth breathing, but I didn't tell them that's what it was because that would freak the guys out. But natural childbirth breathing. Well, no, in through your nose, out through your mouth, deep and slow.
A cleansing breath. I remember. Not that I've ever given birth.
Yeah, and you just do that and focus all your attention on your feet and just feel them kind of melting into the mattress. And then work up to your ankles and your calves and your knees until the tip of your nose is the only thing that's sticking out of the mattress. And that's when the movie starts.
Interesting.
And it's just exactly what you said. It's seeing, as if it were a 3D IMAX movie, seeing yourself being the highest good that you can be.
Yeah.
The highest version of yourself. So, boy, are we on the same track. I didn't mean to interrupt you. It's just
I love it. I love that we're on the same track here because it's true. And
that's great.
It's true for any type of manifestation. It
doesn't matter what it is. It could be exam anxiety. It could be a job interview. It could be shame. It's frequently not just shame, though. There's usually some fear involved with it.
Sure.
Because that's what shame is. It's the doorway to fear.
Absolutely.
But that's good. Tell us another one.
Tell us another one. I do all types of practices. I mean, obviously, I do a lot of meditation in the morning. I mean, and I always try to stay up in my reading and whatnot. And I just, I feel that what we don't do is give ourselves permission to dream and to be children again and to play. And when I meant notice what you're noticing, that's exactly what I'm talking about, because I'm sitting here right now in a real estate office. I've been very successful in real estate. And to a certain degree, if I'm going to be 100% authentic, I believe in my mind, it could be wrong. I've created this persona to subsidize and to create this world of acceptance, this Norman Rockwell portrait that I built, of a great house, family with the kids in private school, the vacations, blah, 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 blah. And my biggest fear was poverty. And I literally, if I'm not going to claim that, but if we're going to go by definition, I'm there. And I believe the universe said, okay, well, you know what? You really do need to experience this because this is not the truth of you. And you need to move through this and you have to understand it, because this is where all of the compassion, not just some of the compassion, but all of the compassion comes from. The next time that I manage a call center with 250 reps and I look over my shoulder and I see a guy who's in his 50s and I think that poor SOB is still working, well, guess what? I'm below that now. So let's talk about humility now. I can't possibly get in front of anybody and share anything of value if I am not walking the talk. I just can't. And going back to that, you know, giving yourself permission to dream, shame will obliterate that. It'll tell you not allowed here, dreaming not allowed. That's not for you. You know, that's for people who are worthy. Worthiness is a whole nother topic. That's a cousin of these
Oh,
guys too.
worthiness is an illusion. Well, actually, worthiness is not an illusion. Unworthiness is an illusion.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as unworthy.
There isn't. It's actually they're human constructs.
They are.
They're basically responses to lies, you know, that we've made true in our minds.
I think what they are is that we took a lie and we made that the foundation, and then we built everything else on top of it.
On top of it.
And then it crumbles.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's no such thing as not worthy. I think that the greatest disservice any religious tradition, spiritual tradition has done to the world was the creation of original sin.
Oh, yeah.
Because we are not just originally, but permanently perfect.
Yes. Yes.
And so, yeah, that's a big one. How do you do that? How do you do that? I mean, just give us a recipe.
Wow. If I had that recipe, my gosh, I'd be selling it in a 1-800 number. Direct mail. That's my background. Infomercials. You know, I feel I almost had to go back to my real estate career, because if you think about it, I would be sitting across the table from people who come from generations of renting and could not picture themselves as first-time immigrants or whatever in purchasing their own home. So I would literally be trying to pull the dream out of them using open-ended questions in conversation, just getting all types of prompts to get them excited about something. And they were like not having it. So what I started doing is we talked about Harry Potter earlier today. I have a Harry Potter wand. And I sometimes bring it to that buyer's consult and I open it up and they're like, what is this? And I'm like, it's a wand. So I hand it to them and I'm like, all right, let's pretend now that everything that you ever dreamed of as a child, of what your home would look like, of what your life would feel like, where you would go shopping, where you would take your kids to school, where you would walk your dog, all these things, where would you put your tree, just wave that wand and give yourself permission to go back there again. Oh my God, Sharri, it's like magic.
Well, there's your online sales thing. I want one of those wands.
It works for our lives too.
Well, and I'll tell you what I see when you give that description. I used to give people a homework assignment. I bought little, about 3-inch diameter, 2.5-inch diameter circular mirrors. And I bought them a dozen at a time, and I would give them to people, and I'd say, all right, you have to carry this in your pocket for a week. And 3 times a day, you have to take it out. You have to look yourself straight in the eyes and say, God loves you, and so do I. The God loves you part makes the and so do I part possible. Otherwise, people cringe about saying and so do I. But that wand, my gosh, you take that wand, you walk into the bathroom, you look in the mirror, and you say, Kazam, this is mine. It's done. And so it is in physical form. You have to do that. I want a wand.
Well, I'll tell you, it's a prop. There's obviously no power in the wand, but the power that you give yourself, and that is it comes from within. It's a permission to dream, to be a child again, to go there, you know, we can use it in our own lives as well. And I'll tell you what. Shame and guilt, you know, to title this talk and to start around, I mean, it's pretty heavy. I'm sure a lot of people probably tuned up saying, oh my God, I don't want to deal with that. But here's the positive part of it. The positive part about it is that wand, you know, basically can be activated when you've taken somewhat of control over guilt and shame. That's what activates the wand. So if you can think of the magic of that wand, basically actually being able to feel like you're I'm not too old. I can accomplish this. I can do this. I always wanted to do this. I always wanted to go there. I wanted a partner like this. I wanted a house like that. Why not? Why not? Because we've deprived ourselves really in this martyrdom, which serves no
Here's
one.
the thing. You said it 3 times. We could be like a child.
Yeah.
But do you know why children can dream like that? They can dream without boundaries because they have no illusion of separation from the divine.
Right.
They have no picture of themselves as other than perfect and powerful. So I love that your wand eliminates that illusion.
Yeah. For myself. I mean,
For yourself and for anybody who puts their hand on it.
I mean, do you think I would want to go through this hard, gut-wrenching work if there wasn't a light at the end of the tunnel?
And you weren't certain it wasn't an oncoming train.
Girl, there's been days that I'm like, is this the light or is this the train? Oh, and laughter. Oh my gosh. Thank you for reminding me. Laughter.
Laughter is a spiritual practice.
Oh,
we have a daily minimum requirement for giggles.
We must. Whatever gives you a good old chuckle, do it. Yep. Do it. Don't even look back. Chuckle at whatever it is. Just chuckle. Not so much at people, but chuckle.
Well, at yourself, yeah. Because
yeah.
Chuckling at yourself is recognizing the okayness of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh gosh, I just love that wand.
Yeah, that wand. I mean, yeah, it's
you could do a blog about that.
You think that'd be fun?
Yeah, I think you'd have followers if you did a blog about. Here's the wand.
That could be fun.
Here's what the wand does today.
So,
today's spell.
I've recently come across another meditation, a loving kindness meditation.
Oh.
And I'm getting into that because I see the difference, and it really does make a huge difference when you are hearing these words that they're foreign. It's not a language that we're used to speaking to ourselves in sometimes when we have this history. But wow, what a huge difference. I know that mindfulness and practicing the presence are things that also have helped me. Our friend Martha Creek has helped me a lot too.
Some Martha Creek.
I love me some Martha Creek too. She's definitely helped me along those lines. She's like, honey, one step in front of you at a time.
Isn't that wonderful how she calls everybody honey?
I love her.
Baby doll.
You just want to hug her. You just want to hug her and love her. And Dr. Charles Geddes, and
another one.
He's my Papa Bear, and
I know he could walk across any swimming pool in town if we just turned him loose.
And these are the people that I have on a weekly basis seeing me through my dark night of the soul. And I gotta say, if I don't make it through, there's no reason not to. I am so loved and so supported, and I feel that invitation has to come from the person experiencing the dark night of the soul. True. You have to say, help, and realize
all you have to do is open the door. You don't even have to say help. You just have to open the door.
And it's amazing the quality of the people that want to join your party, because they see it in you. They see themselves in you. They know unity. They know consciousness. They know that we are one divine mind, one, and they want to see you thrive. So people want to join the party. They want to join the party.
Yeah, there are a lot of stakeholders when you set yourself up for discovery.
Yeah, and I feel it's time. I really do. It's I've been a little frustrated with myself as far as like true north. How long is it coming along? It takes like it's coming along, and I was going down the traditional paths of creating a business plan and this and that, and the universe said, "It's not how it's going to be birthed, my friend." That's
that illusion we talked about just a minute ago. Well, time is another one.
Oh yeah. This is
Time
true.
is a man-made construct.
It's another construct. Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
You know, because and how I deal with that is that and all my classmates when I was in ministerial school, this was their favorite Sharriism. God is not wearing my wristwatch.
Ooh, this is true. God doesn't have a wrist.
There you go. You know, God is completely outside of time, and we are inside of God.
Yes. So we travel we travel in that dimension.
Yep.
And but at the same time having a very human experience, which that brings me to the emotional side of this. I have emotions, and I want to make sure that before we wrap up today, that I make it very clear that this is not one big spiritual bypass, because I do cry. This morning I had a little meltdown, and it comes in waves, but I allow it to. I allow it to, and I allow it to without shame. Sometimes it's not in the most convenient times, it could be, it's like, oh, waterworks now the waterworks. But it's okay, because it's a cleansing process, and it's a forgiveness process. It's a radical forgiveness of yourself, and a reconciliation with that inner child.
You know, part of the radical forgiveness stuff is that they did some scientific studies and found that crying, releasing tears, actually releases toxins, not just emotional toxins, but physical toxins from your system. It's not just okay; it's necessary and healthy.
I believe it. I believe it. I mean, when I tell you that my face was contorted like Linda Blair, I'm not kidding you. I can actually post some pictures here, and you would be like shocked. It's like, really, girl, where is the green pea soup? I was that close to green pea soup. It was that terrifying, and it was a scary moment. And it actually happened the morning before I was getting on a plane to Anton to see you.
Oh.
2 hours before I got on my plane, I look like Linda Blair, and I'm like, TSA is not going to have it. They're not going to let me through security looking like. But
if it's any consolation, I was there the whole week, and you never looked like Linda Blair.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Little spackling job there. So. Yeah. But definitely self-compassion is a practice that I feel is very, very important. Just and it's hard. It's to me, it's a foreign language is what it is, So it becomes almost one of those cart before the horse moments, where we start, even though we don't maybe totally believe it, we practice it until we believe it.
You have to remind yourself on a daily, if that's too much, hourly, if that's too much, minutely basis, that self-care is prayer.
So my kids figured this one out. And for Christmas, I was invited back to my old home, the one that I built, where my ex lives now with her boyfriend and the family and my dog and everybody. And we had a tremendously beautiful, modern family Christmas, and we are so proud of that, Sharri. We are proud of it, because we asked ourselves the question when the house of cards, as you mentioned, was falling apart, and the guilt of walking away from this beautiful life, and with my sense of joy, basically my central unit of joy was that family that I created, and just letting it go was, may it still stay together, and let's just commit to one thing. We ask ourselves, in our moment of anguish, in our moment of fear, in our moment of depression and sadness, what would love do? How would love respond here?
That is always going to give you the right answer. There is
and I just lived it.
The wrong answer.
I just lived it. And I'm like, this man, who is my ex-wife's boyfriend now, is the man that I dreamed for her, in essence, somebody who would respect her and love her, and just celebrate her in a way that I could not. So how could I not be overjoyed and believing of this? So my kids gave me a little gift. They knew this about self-love, and they're like, well, we can give you a bunch of things, but we want to give you an experience. So they gave me a massage and
Oh,
a session at a local salt cave. So it's a salt room that I get to spend a couple of hours in meditating and in like a bath without, and I'm like really excited about those things. So they understand that
well, and,
dad.
and what I have to tell you, what I get from that story is that you're struggling and you're discovering all these new things, but you need to give yourself credit for having raised some really cool kids.
They're really cool. They're really cool. Even
They
my
learned.
son-in-law.
They learned what you needed them, what you were trying to teach them, even though you didn't learn it right then. They got it, and that
You're
is
right.
an amazing blessing.
You are
And
right
I
on the
would
money
think
on
a
that.
considerable source of pride.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah.
And I actually, when I turned in my car, my fancy car, to kind of like really turn everything in and purge my life, I'm like, how am I going to drive? My son-in-law gave me and titled over his car. My son-in-law, who is not blood, but he is my son, no different, because the energy that brought him to my daughter is the same energy. It's like draws like.
Yep.
And
And it's what I taught all my grandkids and great grandkids. Blood makes relatives, love makes family.
Amen to that. Amen. Yeah.
So I'm not going to ask you all the questions I normally ask because it's only been 2 weeks, but I am going to ask you one of them.
Yeah. Okay.
Is there anything you really want people to know, hear, feel that I haven't asked you about?
I feel we've covered a lot.
Yes, we have.
I might have sounded a little judgy when I first came on and thought, I've been judgy to myself. So hello, surprise, I've been judgy to others as well. About my fellow travelers down this path being in a perpetual state of healing. I feel that I want to clarify that a little bit, because we need to constantly be in communion with the divine. We need to be in communion with each other and know consciousness for each other. I mean, I hope to go to ministerial school too when the time is right. I know time is a construct, but whenever that happens in divine time, It'll happen. In the meantime, I'm a practitioner first, and a job of a practitioner is to know consciousness on demand for people, and know the truth. So it's time for me to know that for myself. So that is something that I feel is important to drive home, that we might not have, I might have skimmed over a little bit, is that I don't mean to be in judgment of people that are perpetual students of this, because I feel that I will be too. It's just my expectations have changed. And the disappointment comes with the management of expectations. My expectations now are that, intellectually speaking, I could read every book on the planet, and until I feel it and know it from a divine source directly, it doesn't mean a thing. It's just intellectual.
So what you're saying is that your definition of healing has evolved.
It has. It has.
Good.
You can't take a pill. You got to do the hard work.
There you go. All right. Well, listen, folks, you got to come back next week, because this time God was really in the mix. And the next speaker we have, our guest next week, is Reverend Dr. Michelle Whittington, whose business is called Unleash Your Life. A perfect follow-up to Marco's talk today. So don't miss it. We'll see you then. Bye-bye.
On behalf of everyone at New Thought Media Network, thank you for being a member of our virtual family. Your financial contributions help share the New Thought message with people from around the world. Please visit and contribute at www.ntmedia.org/donate. New Thought Media Network. Come be you. And please like, share, and subscribe. Until next time, peace and blessings.
Amen. amazing. You will do amazing things. Amazing, amazing.